All in Sports Network. We love sports.
It is Tuesday, April 29th, right here on your daily fix for all things Texas Longhorns. I'm Tanner Carlson. That is Jake Jimerson. And this is All In Horns, brought to you by Rogue Sports Network. Today's episode, we are going to do a draft recap. I know Monday's episode, we primarily talked baseball, softball series against Texas A&M and OU. And we wanted to spend and give those series the correct amount of time, the proper amount of time to talk about those. But we did end that episode briefly discussing the NFL draft and the amount of Texas players that got drafted, where they went. We didn't dive into good fits, what we like to see, what we didn't like to see, this, that, and the other, and just overall storylines of the NFL draft. And boy, just because the players didn't come out and shine on the NFL draft prospects, the analysts sure did steal the show when we needed them to the most. And Mel Kiper wearing that Superman cape for Sheduer Sanders. And the biggest drop I've ever seen a prospect have in an NFL draft. I mean, he projected to go 1 through 5 at some point in the top 5 picks, and then gets picked in the 5th round. I've seen the Aaron Rodgers drops. You know, you see the Jimmy Clausen drops. You see some of these further drops that, you know, even if you want to throw in Johnny Manziel or, a Geno Smith, if you will, some of these guys get dropped and it's like, oh, going into the 2nd round, into the 1st round, whatever that looks like. Never to this extent, to the 5th round. We've never seen anything like this. And so Jake and I, we want to talk about a lot of the headlines of the draft itself and give you a full draft recap, including Sheduer Sanders getting prank called. Can't forget about that storyline. And then we'll obviously wrap up the show, and we'll kind of dive deeper in to the Texas Longhorns that were drafted, all 12 of them. And one going to the Dallas Cowboys. Jaden Blue, got to be excited about that. 2 of them going to the Philadelphia Eagles, 2 of them going to the Green Bay Packers, and 2 of them going to the Saints. And so multiple teams getting multiple Texas players on their rosters. Very excited about where the Texas program is. So anyway, Jake, let's go. Sheduer Sanders getting prank called. Hold on. So the story goes, and I was just like, what is happening? I saw the video pop up of Sheduer's team vlogging his entire draft experience, which got more and more embarrassing with each passing moment of them vlogging this entire scenario outplaying. And then I think, what was it, the third round, 2nd or 3rd round, they get a call from an unknown number from the New Orleans Saints, and he's saying, hey, this is the GM for the New Orleans Saints. We're going to take you with our next pick, but you're going to have to hold on for a bit. And then he hangs up, and Sheduer's like, what does that even mean? What? Hold on for a little bit. So then they're like watching the TV, and they're like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Why am I not talking to the coaches and like everyone congratulating me? And then it goes, the fact that the Saints drafted a quarterback in that moment, and it was Tyler Shuck, of all players from Louisville, that moment will live in infamy forever. So what happened was, this grown man, not a kid. People are saying kid. He's 21 years old. He's the son of the Atlanta Falcons defensive coordinator. And he then posted a video, or one of his friends posted a video of him prank calling Sheduer, and it has his face right there showing him who he is. And then it gets out that that's the defensive coordinator's son. The Atlanta Falcons have to post an apology letter and this, that, and the other. Just a complete shit show. But not only did Sheduer drop 5, so he got prank called, and it was posted everywhere. And it was from a division rivals team of the New Orleans Saints, is Atlanta Falcons division rival. One of the coach's kids pulled this off.
Which, that coach has to be just beyond pissed at his kid, because that is so ridiculously stupid. And it's not like it was a 10-year-old kid.
Right.
This is someone old enough to know that's really stupid. And I think it's funny, but just coming coming from the thinking of it from a logistical point of view is I did stupid stuff when I was 21. I would have never thought to done that if my dad was a coordinator of an NFL team. It's one of the dumbest things I've seen someone do that isn't just outright egregious.
Jake,
but
you and I are both really stupid people. Would you agree with that? Like we've
yes,
both
100%.
dumb things in our life, and a couple 90% of them happened within a 2-year span in college. But just would have. I don't imagine a world where this would have crossed my mind to be like, yeah, let me do this, especially with my dad.
And then post it. Like they're not going to figure out that you're the son of an NFL coordinator. So it's one thing to do it.
Right.
I mean, that takes it.
Let's break down
you
the
have
level.
to be at this level of stupid to do this in the first place. And this is like a 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
To then post the recording and think that you're not going to get figured out, the ceiling. You're at like a 20 out of 10 stupid.
Well, and then not only that, but you're also the son of a defensive coordinator in the NFL. So that's like just another
that figures into this. You're not some random college kid who somehow got his number and then did that. That wouldn't be, it'd still be stupid but it wouldn't be as dumb. When your dad is in a prominent position in the NFL, to do that is incredibly stupid because now his name is going to be linked to your stunt. And you think that's not going to get brought up if he gets a head coaching interview opportunity? You think that won't hinder him from getting a head coaching interview opportunity? The NFL is not going to look down at that very good because he was able to get that number. And whether it's fair or not, the dad is going to get the blame. And so that's why I think it's so incredibly stupid, is because you are hurting your dad's career by doing that.
Yeah. Apparently, he saw a tablet that was open, had information on it of potential draft prospects. You having an earthquake over there? And
I hit my camera.
And he looked over at the tablet, saw Sheduer's name, number. He either took a picture of it or wrote it out or whatever, and had the idea, right there in that moment, I'm going to prank call him on like premeditated stupidity. Premeditated. It wasn't
had time to think it through. And then, I get taking the picture and be like, this would be funny. But then to not, over the course of the time, stop yourself and go, this is really stupid and could probably get my dad in trouble.
Or have one of your 5 friends that are giggling in the background, recording you doing it, saying, you know what, guys, this is probably not a great idea.
Maybe we shouldn't record this.
Instead, let's record it and then post it. That'll make a lot of sense. So anyway, Jake, let's stay on the topic of Sheduer. He does fall all the way to the 5th round. And then Mel Kiper with an all-time, this will go down in infamy of one of the best meltdown rants after he got drafted, of just saying the NFL has no clue how to evaluate quarterbacks. We up here on the panel who don't work for the NFL, we work for a network that covers the NFL. We all know what we're doing better than the NFL knows how to evaluate quarterbacks. A league in which, the Chiefs traded up, 10, 15 spots to draft someone named Patrick Mahomes.
And we're called stupid by people like us and people like
called
them.
Stupid for doing said thing. Yes. A lot of, guys who, fallen down. And I don't know, the Ravens, Jake. What about the Ravens trading back into the 1st round? They drafted someone, Lamar something, Jackson something. Yeah, Lamar Jackson. Back trading up to get him after he.
To be fair, by the standards that are put onto a QB with a star, Lamar Jackson does in fact suck.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. How do you feel about Mel Kiper evaluating quarterbacks better than the entire NFL?
What's incredible is we've already covered this once. On Friday's show, we covered how Mel Kiper was melting down. The meltdown continued because Sheduer kept falling. Let's keep in mind, again, we mentioned this before. We missed Cam Ward's reaction to be taken first because Mel Kiper was showing Sheduer Sanders highlights. For the first pick in the NFL draft, he went in the 5th round of the NFL draft.
Yeah.
Just incredible.
So let's put
But-
this in the context. It would be a very similar thing of Ashton Genty getting drafted and then Mel Kiper being like, but Cam Scattaboo from Arizona State, and then they're showing Cam Scattaboo highlights instead of Ashton Genty highlights. Essentially is what we got.
Yeah, and it was where did Cam Scattaboo go,
The
by the
Giants.
way? The Giants. Oh, okay. So his career's over.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, to have the ignorance to say that when really I would argue no one knows how to evaluate quarterbacks perfectly because everyone misses. But to have the ignorance and the ego to go on the rant he did, it really does feel like he was paid off, whether it be by someone in the Sanders family or someone outside of that he was paid off to be like that. Because that was, I mean, I haven't been a big Kiper fan for a few years now. I used to like Kiper a lot, but I feel like some of those ESPN guys, the longer they're there, the more they get paid, the more they just change and kind of adapt to the I got to go for clicks movement. I mean, I openly was watching the other broadcast that was much better with Nick Saban and the College Game Day crew. But Mel Kiper looked like an absolute clown during this. He looked like a joke and kind of a disgrace to having the position that he has, to acting like a crybaby child the entire NFL draft over a QB not getting taken.
I thought he was legitimately going to cry.
Yeah, he looked like a joke. And then for people to start saying that this is some conspiracy by the NFL, that they're doing the Colin Kaepernick thing to him, is beyond ridiculous. You know what happened? He interviewed poorly. And guess what? The film isn't perfect. He's not guaranteed to be a good NFL quarterback. He's not even guaranteed to be a starting worthy quarterback in the NFL. And then you listen to him in press conferences, you listen to him on streams, you listen to interviews he's done outside of the combine interviews, trashing in his offensive line, trashing his teammates that aren't Travis Hunter. Guess what? NFL teams don't like that in what should be the number one leadership position on the entire football field. That looks very poorly. And when you have good college film, but also a lot of film that is you holding on to the ball too long and it not always being your offensive line's fault. A lot of Johnny Manziel-esque film that works in college, but doesn't work at the pro level. And Sheduer Sanders could be a good NFL quarterback, but I think a lot of teams decided that the downsides were not worth taking him high. And quarterbacks in general in this draft fell, other than a Tyler Shuck, which I don't understand. I think he should have gone in the 7th round. I would have taken Quinn Ewers before him. And then Dylan Gabriel was really the only other very questionable one to me. But quarterbacks in general fell.
Dylan Gabriel also getting drafted in the same team as Sheduer Sanders, who they traded up to get Sheduer Sanders.
What are the Browns doing? They have 2 first-round picks next year. They're going to have to take a quarterback next year.
Yeah. They have 5 on their roster.
They just signed Joe. They signed Joe Flacco, right?
Dude, they've got Deshaun Watson, who probably won't play, Kenny Pickett as their backup, Joe Flacco as the backup, and now they've got 2 rookie quarterbacks who they can't cut the 2 rookie quarterbacks. They're invested in them. And so what do they do? Are they going to hold on to 5 quarterbacks?
They're trying to make that jersey that people have that has all the quarterbacks since they've joined back the NFL.
I mean, surely
they're trying to make that list as long as humanly possible.
Surely Joe Flacco doesn't make the final roster. Like, he's got to be the odd man out, but he might be the best one.
What are they do? I just don't. I can't. I mean, it's the Browns. When can you understand what they're doing? But it truly makes no sense. They could have just taken Sheduer when they took Dylan Gabriel and just never took Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah,
I don't understand what they're
Gabriel
doing.
And never taken Sheduer. I mean, whichever one they like.
Yeah,
better.
Once you take Dylan Gabriel, you should be committing to not taking Sheduer. What the Browns are doing doesn't make sense. I mean, going into last year, I said I thought Sheduer was a 5th to 7th round guy. I didn't say that going into this draft. We also didn't get to our quarterbacks evaluation. But I probably would have had around a 4th round grade on him because I wasn't in love with his play style in college. And I even less if you're going to sit there and trash offensive linemen. Yeah, I'm going to hate you.
Yeah.
And so I'm not a Sheduer fan.
Here's my thing. And I have no sources. I've not read anything about this, but here's really what I think happened. Here's a very reasonable and a realistic thing that I think happened. He went through his interview process with these teams, and they probably gave him a couple scenarios, very similar to what you see on Gruden's QB camp. Give him a couple scenarios on the board. What would you do in this scenario? What play would you call? What would you audible into with this? How would you respond to that? And I can almost 80 to 90% sure his answers weren't nearly as serious of actually answering the question. And they were probably along the lines of, well, it's just me, baby. Like, I'm going to get the job done. Like, don't worry about it. I make plays happen. I'm legendary.
As long as my offensive line blocks, it doesn't suck. Are you going to get me good offensive line?
Right. I can almost guarantee you a lot of his answers probably sounded somewhat similar to that for 1 or 2, 3 teams that were interviewing him. And then they told other teams, and other teams were like, are you serious? Then they probably didn't even want to interview him, or those teams that did interview him probably got a similar vibe from him. And I also just don't think they want to deal with the family. Deion, no one wants to deal with the loud dad. No one wants to deal with the loud parent. And yes, he has another job dealing with Colorado right now, but that doesn't mean that he hasn't made his whole family and all of his kids the number one priority of that university. And so,
his number getting retired screams that.
Yeah.
And if his film was good enough and teams were sold enough on his ability, he would have gone in the first round without a doubt. But his film is not that great. I don't understand why Mel Kiper thinks he's just a guaranteed Hall of Fame quarterback, apparently.
Well, he also had Paxton Lynch in the first round.
That is true. And evaluating quarterbacks is tough, but when there's all the red flags that there weren't, I don't even care about his dad and all that stuff. You can avoid that stuff if you're an NFL team and just shut it out. But what you can't avoid is him saying stupid things.
Right. Like what you said, though, Jake. I mean, a lot of it is this quarterback is the undisputed leader. The moment you're drafted, I don't care if you're a rookie. I don't care if you're a 15-year veteran. If you're on the starting lineup, if you're the starting quarterback for that team, you are team captain, period. Point blank, done. You don't have to earn your stripes. You're the captain of that team, of that offense, of that unit. They're looking up to you when you're calling plays in the huddle. You've got 10 other guys looking at you, curious, what do I need to do? What am I doing? I'm following your lead here. And when you go into a press conference and you go behind the backs of those 11 or those 10 guys looking back at you in the huddle saying, well, he didn't do his job. If he would have done his job, I would have done better, this, that, and the other. You're not taking any accountability, and you're going to lose a lot of leadership. You're going to lose a lot of the locker room. And I'm curious if a lot of these GMs didn't go to some of the players or some of the assistant coaches of Colorado and said, what's it like coaching him? What's it like playing with him? Not Deion, but some of the other guys. And I'm curious what those answers were, because I'm sure that had something to do with his drop.
Yeah. I mean, go just, if anyone's not aware of some of the things that he said, to just get a taste of it, go watch Sheduer Sanders post-game press conference after the Nebraska game. And that will tell you a lot about him talking about, Dylan Raionoa, how many times was he pressured? How many times was he sacked? Yeah. When Sheduer Sanders sacked himself a lot by holding on to the ball too long at every level that he played at. Yes, his offensive line wasn't great, but you do not throw your offensive line under the bus ever.
You're probably not going to have a great offensive line if you're an early draft pick either, just saying.
Yeah, and he wasn't an early draft pick, and he's still not going to have a great offensive line if he's on the roster in a couple of years.
Correct. All right, Jake, let's go ahead. Let's dive into these Longhorns. 12 Longhorns drafted, most in program history for the Texas Longhorns. We'll go in order here, Jake. 3 in the first round. Kelvin Banks at number 9 to the Saints. Jahdae Barron, number 20 to the Broncos. Matthew Golden in his golden suit, round 1, number 23 to the Packers. We talked about that on Friday's episode last week. Now, here are the picks that we didn't get to discuss. To the 49ers with the 43rd pick in the second round, Alfred Collins. Another second-round pick, Andrew Makuba to the Eagles. Vernon Broughton in the third round to the Saints. Gunnar Helm in the fourth round to the Titans. Baron Sorrell, fourth round to the Packers. Jaden Blue in the fifth round to the Cowboys. Cam Williams in the sixth round to the Eagles. Hayden Connor in the sixth round to the Cardinals. And Quinn Ewers in the seventh round to the Dolphins. Jake, best fits from that list, guys that you think are going to have an earlier impact, guys who you think are going to have the best career, guys who you think might be a journeyman. But what's your take on where some of these guys got drafted, aside from half of them getting drafted to Dallas Cowboy rivals that I now have to hate them forever?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to talk much. I mean, I think everyone knows my opinion on Calvin Banks. If you aren't, just go back and watch pretty much any podcast we've ever recorded. I've probably brought him up one way or another. Jade Barron, Matthew Golden. I mean, all those kind of top round picks go without saying. But Andrew Makuba is a guy, unfortunately, I think might have a really good career if he can stay healthy at the NFL level. I think that is a really good pick for the Eagles. And again, unfortunately, Vernon Broughton, I think, could have a kind of a surprise, really good type of career. I think a lot of these guys have a chance to make impacts at the next level. Even a Gunnar Helm, I think he'll fit well at Tennessee.
I don't even know who their tight end currently is. O'Shanahan.
And Cam Ward will have a kind of a good weapon at tight end to throw to. And I could even see I think a Hayden Connor could be a big surprise. A guy that could end up, I'm not saying be an all-pro or be a Pro Bowler, but be a starter in the NFL for a while. And have just one of those decent careers where he's a starter for a while, then maybe has a journeyman type of end of his career where he kind of goes and is a backup or a plug and play starter for a team that's guard.
And he might not start till his third year in the league, and then he has a good third year going into his rookie contract, and then the Cardinals want to sign him after kind of proving that he's a starter, and then plays through that next contract for about 4 more years, and then like you said. Might kind of be a journeyman and just kind of a fill-in guy for some other teams, but can kind of play his role if need be.
Yeah, but I think all these guys can have impact on their rosters, if not right away, within the next 2 to 3 years. 2 guys I think on this list, though, that were not taken early. I don't want to talk about the early picks as much because I think those ones are obviously going to have early impact, is Jaden Blue with Dallas. I think that is a very good fit for Jaden Blue. He's going to need to see the field early. And if he can overcome his fumbles issues, his ceiling is ridiculously high in the NFL, just like it was in college. And Quinn Ewers, we said before, where does he need to go to succeed? The Dolphins, I think, was both of ours number 1 pick because San Fran wasn't as realistic.
I said Rams. Rams were my number 1, but I did like the Dolphins.
I think I had Dolphins 1 and Rams 2, and I think but for me it's kind of 1A, 1B, Rams or Dolphins.
I also like the Lions. Who knows how much longer Goff is going to be there. Goff could be there for another 8 years.
But with Ben Johnson gone, I don't think there's as much surety when you have the head coach who is the offensive mind of the team. I think that is better stability. For a Quinn Ewers than, not having that Ben Johnson now at Detroit. So I would still put the Rams and Dolphins ahead as far as the place he could go. Well, he ended up at the Dolphins. Yeah, he fell. He fell way further than I thought he would. I thought he would have had a better chance of going in the second and third round than going in the 7th. Jake, but that's just not how quarterback worked out.
Yeah. Phil Yates had a really good quote on the quarterback class. And he said, really, we kind of started seeing glimpses of it last year, but this year we've seen it more than we ever have. That the NFL scouts and GMs that he has talked to, this is Phil Yates on ESPN. He has these connections, and he said this on the broadcast. He said, this year, more than any year, and we saw it last year because there were 6 quarterbacks taken in the first round, and then there wasn't another quarterback taken until like the 3rd or 4th round last year. So this year, a little bit similar, but there just wasn't that top end talent in the first round. But he said a lot of GMs and coaches are putting quarterbacks into two categories: starter, not starter, period. Not potential, not this, not that. Are you a starter or are you a backup? And if you're not a starter, we're not getting you in the first round. If you're a backup, then you might be looking late second and then on into the rest of the rounds, you know. And so I think that's just how they viewed this class. Now, in the order in which a lot of these quarterbacks went, I didn't necessarily agree with. That's not really what I saw from college tape or anything along those lines, but I'm not an NFL GM. I'm not a quarterback. Everybody has their preferences. But I do think Mike McDaniel at Miami and his offense with Tua and then the injury proneness of Tua might allow for Quinn to be forced to be more prepared on a week in and week out basis. And they have needed a backup quarterback. I mean, they've been in the depths of hell when it comes to quarterback depth at Miami, when they're one of the teams that have needed it the most with the injury history from Tua. So I think Quinn probably going into as QB2.
Yeah, he might be. I mean, he might play a lot this next year. In fact, my money would be on he is going to end up starting at least a couple games if he gets that QB2 spot, which when you consider who the Dolphins have ran through there, why wouldn't they at least give him a whirl? He's going to have a good understanding of how to run an offense like that. I know Mike McDaniel and Steve Sarkisian have talked. I know Mike McDaniel went to the Texas campus a lot and was watching Quinn throw, not just at the pro day, even on some of the some different visits that he went on to watch Quinn throw. And so I'm excited for Quinn. I think getting that 7th round pick puts a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. And I think the fit could not be much better as far as a offensive scheme. And he's going to have a chance to make an impact. Now, the Dolphins might be in a little bit of influx with some of their wide receivers, mainly Tyreek Hill, but that's just to be expected. He can't stay anywhere longer than a few years without starting to have issues. But they're still going to be talented on the offensive side of the ball. And that style of offense fits Quinn really well. And I think Mike McDaniel is a perfect coach to continue his development into the pros. And so I'll be excited to see what he does at the pro level, because if he would have ended up at a Cleveland, if he would have ended up in Arizona, you know, or many other franchises, I would have, even Dallas, I would have had basically no hope for him at the NFL level. But to end up at one of the names that we said, this is where we'd really like to see him at, because that gives him the best chances to succeed. It does give me some hope for his NFL career.
Yeah. Let's talk a little Jaden Blue before we log off. And then I'm also going to name a couple of guys that were entered their names into the draft and did not get drafted. One big one stands out above the rest.
And Cam Williams, I think we should have a little discussion on him as well.
Yeah. Jaden Blue, Jake, with the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys also drafted Phil Maffa, the running back from Clemson. So to come away with two running backs, two rookies who actually played in the playoffs against one another, and happened to be Jaden Blue's probably his biggest game of the 2024 season in that playoff game. Jaden Blue has kind of been the change of pace back his entire career. He's never really been given the number one nod. And then whenever he was given the number one nod early on this season in 2024, had a little bit of a hamstring injury, kind of hampered him a little bit. And then he had fumbling issues. And then it became the Trey Wisner team. And Trey Wisner eventually took over midway through the season as the undisputed running back one. And Jaden Blue was kind of that change of pace guy, big play opportunity guy. Here's kind of what I think. I mean, I don't really know what the quarterback or the running back room for the Dallas Cowboys is going to look like by the end of training camp, going into preseason, going into week one. But if one of these two rookies emerges as more of the every down back, it's probably going to be Phil Maffa. And then Jaden Blue could very easily come in and be that change of pace guy, still getting a lot of reps. But I think no matter what, even if Phil Maffa doesn't come around as the every down back, a 7th round pick becoming your starter in year one, probably not going to happen, just eventually in their career, whether it be year 2, year 3, whatever. We kind of use this duo. I think no matter what, Jaden Blue's kind of in that change of, I don't know if he's an every down back guy, but I do think he finds himself on the field quite a bit this season as a rookie, because of the lack of options you have at running back. And you're going to need some excitement. You're going to need some big plays. And he, trust me, is someone who can definitely put on the burners and make a big play happen for you. So I'm excited about Jaden Blue with this Cowboys offense. I think he could be used, if used properly. He's going to be getting some playing time, year one for sure. Phil Maffa might take a little bit more time to get him on the field.
Yeah, I think he has a chance to make an impact right away. That's why he was one of the two names I kind of listed as kind of a dark horse from this class, especially if he can show in training camp, show in OTAs that he's solving that fumbling issue. And that's something coaches can work on. Pass pro is another thing, but pass pro is more being an every down back to me. You can have Jaden Blue out there and just be like, he's going to run a route because Jaden Blue is very effective in the pass game. And
But
so I think he could
if the moment comes, see, that's the thing about the NFL. Dak recognizes an all-out blitz happening. You got to keep a running back in, keep a tight end in. He's going to have to be forced to, with max protection. He's going to be forced to do some max protection.
But he's dangerous enough where you could just max protect up front with a tight end, have him on a quick swing and hit him, and hope he can beat it. If he's got a guy one-on-one, I'll take that. I'll take that chance. I'll take the chance of him beating a guy one-on-one with the ball in his hand over in pass pro. But I mean, the pass pro is something that will have to be worked on to see the field more consistently, without a doubt. But I think Jaden Blue got the best opportunity he could have to have a chance to impact right away.
Yeah, for sure. So here's some other names. Obviously, you got Cam Williams, who started his draft journey as a late first, early second, kind of within that range, probably late second, third round at the very latest. Ends up going in the 6th round to the Eagles, Jake. He had a lot to work on. You and I both didn't think that he would necessarily be that high up. We thought maybe NFL GMs would like his potential, but I think the film and some of his play in terms of penalties, things of that nature, definitely set him back a little bit. He's one guy that I'm just like, it would have benefited you so much just to stay at Texas.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing is the reason he didn't stay, and I know this is pretty much a fact because every insider source that I've read when it comes to Texas has said that he kind of wanted to stay to a point, but when you're getting told you're going to be a first-round draft pick by the NFL evaluators that talk to these college kids when they're deciding whether to stay or to come out, when you're getting told you're going to be a first-round pick, you don't stay. And it's really unfortunate that he got told that, and I think he got told that before people had really watched his full season of film. And saw all the issues that there were on his film, that he was much more of a developmental prospect. He wasn't a plug and play guy. And I think on our draft show, when it came to putting where we'd kind of grade Longhorns, we had both said like somewhere between the 1st or 3rd round was where he would go. But I think we both kind of prefaced that with, I don't think his film says this.
Right.
And it'll be he's one of the more interesting prospects to see where he falls. I never would have thought he would have fell to the 6th round. But I feel a little bit bad for Cam Williams just because you get told one thing and then you lose millions of dollars.
I mean, Quinn.
Yeah. But which Quinn was going to go just because he didn't really have the option to stay at Texas.
Well, that and then next year's quarterback draft class is much better than this one. So his best chance of getting drafted was actually this class.
Yeah, and just he wanted to end a Longhorn. That's just the type of person Quinn is. He's made a ton of money in his college career. Don't forget, he made millions at Ohio State as well. And so I think he didn't feel the need to stay for a $6 to $7 million paycheck. I think he felt maxed out at the college level and just wanted to figure out if he can succeed in the NFL. But yeah, Cam Williams is one I kind of feel bad for him because I get why he left with the advice and what he was being told by NFL scouts. But that's why sometimes, and maybe this will be a point the Texas coaching staff can use in the future, being like, you don't always need to believe what the scouts are telling you when they're saying you're going to be a first round pick. Especially when you're a guy who's a little more unproven, you don't have the track record that a Kelvin Banks has. And so, yeah, I feel bad for Cam Williams more than anything, because I think if he would have known he was going to go in the 6th round, he would still be at Texas, I think, without a doubt.
Yeah. Jake, let's go ahead and get to some undrafted free agents. Isaiah Bond is still dealing with the accusation of sexual assault. He went undrafted. I think his draft stock was sliding dramatically before the accusations came out. With those coming out, it basically solidified he was going to go undrafted. He remains a free agent, has not signed with anybody. But here are some other names: David Benda with the Tennessee Titans, Gavin Holmes with the Detroit Lions, Bill Norton with the LA Rams, Jake Majors gets on with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Minnesota Vikings sign wide receiver Silas Bolden. And yeah, those are the undrafted free agents of the Texas class that did not get drafted. So the only other ones that entered their name that have not been signed with anybody aside from Isaiah Bond is Mo Blackwell and Velton Garner, which we both have as undrafted guys on our list anyway. So I wasn't real surprised to see those names not get drafted or signed by anybody.
Did any of those names surprise you to not get drafted?
Aside from, I mean, not really with Isaiah Bond, not so much, but obviously talent wise, you never really know. But we saw the fall from with Mike Green from Marshall. He was supposed to be a top 15 pick, and he fell dramatically just because of the accused sexual assault allegations towards him. And again, he's come away unscathed for whatever that means. But guys that went undrafted that I was a little surprised about, maybe Jake Majors, maybe. But I think everybody else, I wasn't really expecting them to get drafted.
I was surprised Jake Majors wasn't taken in the 6th or 7th round.
I thought he was a 7th rounder at the very worst,
Yeah, I thought I would have been. If I
I would have thought that Jake Majors would have been drafted before Hayden Connor.
Yeah, I agree. Jake Majors, they were both multi-year starters. But at the center position, I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are getting a guy that could be playing for him eventually down the road. Jake Majors is very high.
They still have Jepson as their center, right? And he's pretty solid.
So.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm not saying he'll start this year, but they have a guy they could, lean on in the future if there's an injury. I think you feel comfortable with the Jake Majors coming in with his experience. I wonder if the penalties were kind of part of having some snap infraction issues throughout his career hurt. But it's got to be size more than anything. But I just don't get that with the center position at this point. Jason Kelsey was told he was too small, and he's the best. Now, I'm not saying Jake Majors is Jason Kelsey. He's not. But I'm just saying center is one of those positions where undersized guys have a lot of success over time. And so
speaking of wild comparisons, did you see that they were making NFL comparisons, and they put it was Ashton Genty. His NFL comp was Emmitt Smith. Just a wild
comp
comparison.
To make. I get the run style.
His size, he's 5'8". Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I get some of the comparisons there, but it's like, why put that on the kid?
No. Yeah.
Find another guy.
Yeah.
Don't put him up with the NFL leading rusher. The all-time NFL leading rusher.
And I think they had put like Cam Ward with like Peyton Manning or something like that.
No, it was Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, Patrick Mahomes. That's what it was.
Was the comp.
Yeah. I was like, guys, can we not do this? Like, we don't need, and I know the comparison is more so like play style, like you said, but let's not do this. Let's find somebody else.
You're still linking it. Fans take it and run with it. And when they don't succeed, they use it as like they said he was going to be Patrick Mahomes. Right. And it's like, no, they're saying he has maybe that type of ceiling, maybe that type of play style. That doesn't mean, hey, this is Patrick Mahomes.
He has some similar traits, but yeah, no, I know what it is, but it is a wild comparison nonetheless.
To be thrown in, I'm waiting for the Walter Payton comparison next, and then
yeah.
we're gonna have a Randy Moss comparison. It's like
Yeah.
just leave some of those hallowed names alone.
All in the same draft class, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
In a
but
draft
anyway,
class that was considered light by many.
very, very light. Yeah. Next year's draft class, not so light. It's actually going to be a pretty great draft class.
Though
Especially
granted, part of the reason everyone's saying, "Oh, the QB stat class
Arch.
is going to be stacked," they're all putting Arch Manning in that list,
yeah,
and it's like,
that's not necessarily a guaranteed.
no,
thing.
it's in fact, it is far more than likely, not going to be the case that he will be in the NFL draft.
Jake, anything else on the draft that jumped out to you?
Hearing the Jacksonville GM talk is just interesting. He's so young, but I think he came across really. I thought he's like 34, or maybe he was 34 when he got drafted, turned 35 cent. But yeah, 34, 35, not much older than me, not much older than either of us, obviously. But just he came across very well in his press conference. Kind of got me pumped up about their pick, and I'm very curious to see.
He came from the Sean McVay Los Angeles Rams era, and so you're kind of like, you can kind of see some of those similar traits that Sean McVay uses, the language that he used in his press conference, and it's like, he's got. I think the Jags might have something special with him.
That's what I was about to say. Is I really respect what the Jaguars have done. They're taking a legit swing at it. They're not just hiring some refurbished guy to be their GM. That's a name that's been in the NFL but never been overly successful. They're not going with some boring hire, some old guy. They're swinging for it. They're going, you know what? There's been a youth movement in the NFL. Let's give it. What's the worst that could happen? We'd be really bad.
We're the Jacksonville Jaguars.
We're the Jacksonville Jaguars. We've been terrible outside of 1 year for most of our existence, or not most of the existence. They were good long time ago, but in this century, they've been a joke outside of maybe really only 1 year and then a couple years where they've done well with Trevor Lawrence. But I respect what they've done with kind of this youth movement, the head coaching position, with the GM, bringing in some kind of different type of characters, but guys that seem to know the sport, and it, or at least going to be a true change of pace for the organization.
It jumped out to me that he wasn't shy about how they're going to use Travis Hunter, or how they plan on using Travis Hunter. He said, we're going to give him the full offensive playbook at wide receiver, and we're going to sprinkle in some defense, and he is going to play both sides. We were not drafting him just to be like, no, you're a wide receiver, you're never playing defense. And I love that. I absolutely love that.
I think that's the way we both agreed they should use him, was full focus on offense as far as everything on offense, then sprinkle him in on defense. And then you just kind of go from there year to year, see how he holds up, see how he's feeling, talk to him, see what he thinks he can do, and just kind of take it from there. But that's the starting point you put him on. So I think that's the perfect plan.
I've always kind of thought he was a better corner than wide receiver, and he's a really good wide receiver. But that just goes to show how good of a corner he is as well. I do think that you can see a more immediate impact from him on the offensive side of the ball, and that might be what they're kind of going for his rookie season. Kind of see, and it might be something that, hey, you take you're wide receiver, but we're going to continue to keep your quarterback traits. Maybe towards the end of your career, you just transition fully on defense because it's not as impactful, and you can make a little bit more longevity at the cornerback position than you can at wide receiver. I don't know. I don't know what they do, but what the future holds for him. All I know is the dude's a hell of an athlete, and he's going to be really good.
Yeah, and they seem to have a legit plan for him, and that's the important thing. I think Jacksonville in years past had been like, oh God, Travis Hunter went to Jacksonville, but I'm kind of excited to see how his career works out, and I'm borderline excited to see where the Jaguars go from here. Not necessarily this first year. I'm not going to judge a new regime on their first year. You can't rebuild a football team in 1 year in the NFL. But I am kind of excited to see where they go over these next 2 to 5 years with this really young regime that they brought in, and just kind of see if they have success, if it ends up being a complete joke, if it ends up kind of just being a mixed bag, or what ends up happening. But they swung for the fences in this draft, and I respect that.
I 100%. I'm gonna stop judging based on what I see in press conferences, because I had two maybe the worst takes of all time when Campbell, when Matt Campbell got draft or took over as the Detroit Lions head coach. And he had his whole kneecapping press conference. I was like, oh, this is going to be fun at Detroit whenever he gets fired in 2 years.
I remember you texted me that.
Yeah. And then I've also made a fool of myself with the Nick Sirianni stuttering competition on his opening press conference of the and then I put the little kid, meme across of it and then had him finish his sentence. And I was like, oh, this is a beautiful hire for Philly. Thank God they fired their Super Bowl winning coach to hire this guy. Well, he ended up winning a Super Bowl as well.
Yeah,
so.
More Howie Roseman than Nick Sirianni.
Sure, but he still won it.
Yeah, most coaches can win a Super Bowl with the roster they had, but I don't need to. I'm dying on my Bo Nix hill. I don't need any more scorching hot takes.
Yeah.
To die on.
But I like this Jags GM. I'm with you, Jake. Yeah. Other than that, I thought it was an okay draft. In terms of entertainment, crazy trades, big time moments. Aside from the Sheduer Sanders storyline, which we spent 20 minutes of our opening episode on that discussion, that was the only thing that really happened that was exciting, and that's what will make this draft memorable is the dramatic slide from Sheduer Sanders.
Yeah, I mean, that's all that's going to be talked about with this draft. And I think the other story of this draft was how few trades there felt to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think trade values were significant. Everyone talks about GMs having that sheet. And I think that sheet changed during this particular draft. I think teams weren't willing to trade as much future capital to jump up in this draft outside of that Jacksonville trade, because you were going up to get one of the more guaranteed prospects, and there's never a guarantee, but one of the more guaranteed prospects of this draft. Outside of that, teams weren't paying as much to go up, and there weren't as many trades. And I think it's because the offers were lowball offers. I think that's why a Dallas didn't move, or why Seattle didn't move back, or some of these teams that took.
I'd also say that there weren't the players to trade for.
But when you see, and it goes both ways, right? Because I think when you see some of these teams in the first round and those, that 10 to 19, 20 range, you typically see a ton of trades in that range. Didn't really see hardly any. I don't think we saw any during that range this year. And
they were towards
you saw some of the non-premium positions being taken. And I think that's because that's who those teams had as their top guy available on their board. Probably took some calls, got lowball offers, and said, it's not worth it to me to jump back to get not as much as I feel like we should and risk not getting the player that we want.
Right.
And I think that kind of showed up in the middle of that first round, and even in the second round a little bit of this draft.
Yeah. All right, Jake, that's going to do it for today's episode. This is our full draft recap for the people today. And we will see you again on Wednesday as we start preparing for softball's final series of the year against Kentucky, and then baseball taking on Arkansas in Fayetteville. So that's kind of what the rest of our week looks like. And any other breaking news that comes out, and we will have it all for you right here on your daily fix for all things Texas Longhorns. I'm Tanner Carlson. That's Jake Jimerson. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you made it this far in the video, it's only polite to subscribe to the video. So again, as always, ladies and gentlemen, hook 'em.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.